Behind these walls is where I found freedom. I spent over 2,000 days in prison, learning more about myself in this life than I ever could have thought possible.
Just behind these walls, I spent 17,520 hours changing my life. And when I teamed up with Sean, it was to change 1 billion lives for the better. Join us today and level up and become the architect of your greatest life. What's going on, guys? Travis Richey here. I am back with one of my favorite topics, and it is just consuming my life at the moment. And I wanted to share it with you guys. It is the Convicted Conference, okay? This is a first of its kind conference, 100% dedicated to formerly and currently incarcerated individuals and their family and children, okay? I do not know of any conference in the world that has been devoted entirely to the incarcerated community, especially their families and their children. And this is why it's so important for me and Sean to put this conference out. On June 4th in Boise, Idaho, at 10 Mile Christian Church, we expect and hope 1,000 justice-impacted individuals will join us for a day of hope, a day of healing, and a day of real community resources. Re-entry is a buzzword. The government, the departments of corrections, they have done it wrong up until this point. And we are helping educate them on what it takes to really re-enter an individual into society. So many of our loved ones and our friends have been incarcerated for such a long period of time. And the way that the world works and moves is so quickly and so dynamic that if you have been locked up for longer than 90 days, you get out and it's a brand new world. Employers no longer accept paper applications. Banking is done online. The iPhones and the Android phones have changed so rapidly in a great way, but they're so hard to understand. Communication, where we used to sit down, shake hands, look one another in the eye, is almost non-existent. Most of it is done non-verbally. Most of it is done via thumbs. So this conference is going to help the re-entered community understand a couple things. Number one, the intangibles, self-confidence. I can't stress it enough. When an individual leaves prison, they can be broken. They don't understand who they are in society because they haven't been there for a long time. Oftentimes, there's a boatload of shame and guilt that goes along with what's happening. Where have you been, Travis? How many years have you been gone? And what do I say to my neighbors? What do I say to my family members that say, hey, how was prison? Tell me a story. What are you going to do now? All of these questions bring a boatload of anxiety to so many of our friends that are recently returned citizens. And I want to talk about that self-confidence. I want to make sure that we give them the skill set to understand how to control their own narrative, how to craft their own story, and how to hold the pen that tells people what that story looks like. I also want to make sure that at that event, the children of the currently incarcerated are catered to. It is our obligation to make sure that the children do not repeat the sins of the fathers. It is our duty to make sure that we step up as men, as leaders, as providers, to take this next generation from where they are and to never allow them in our shoes behind those prison walls, in those cement dorms. We know we have to become better. They have to become better as a result of our actions. So the Convicted Conference is going to discuss how do we understand the juvenile corrections. As parents, so many I hear them and they say, it's not going to be my kid. It's never going to be my child. I've got a great job. We live in a nice neighborhood. My kid would never do drugs. He or she would never steal from the liquor store, let alone drink something from the liquor store. And when that poor child makes some poor choices, he or she shows back up at home and in the neighborhood and at the school with a lot of shame and a lot of guilt. They don't know their story to tell, and their parents, unfortunately, don't have the resources to help them either. I hope that some of you watching this understand this narrative because you've been there, because you've walked those shoes, because you've been released from prison and didn't have anybody to pick you up, because you had an abusive parent that didn't show you a better way, because you were somebody who could have been made a difference on, but nobody made a difference for you. We have to be the change. We have to. And so the Convicted Conference on June 4th in Boise, Idaho is for everybody from a justice impacted perspective. If you know anybody, friends or family or loved ones who are in the area, who are incarcerated in Idaho, who need to have tangible resources at their fingertips, please have them go to convictedmindset.com and register for the conference. It's free. It's free to attend. I want to make sure that we control this narrative from a community perspective. I want to make sure that we lead the charge and we tell people, look at what returned citizens can do. When you give somebody a second chance, look at what he or she is capable of. That's the narrative I want to tell to the world. That's the important part of where we need to get from a justice impacted perspective. We need to be the change that we want to see in the world. And so on June 4th in Boise, Idaho, we plan to just change the world. I hope that you'll join us. It will be streamed virtually. It might not be a live virtual event. We're still working on some semantics because we're trying to get many of the incarcerated folks to the event, and we're trying to live stream it into the prisons. There's a lot of red tape that goes along with both of those actions, so please bear with us. But it will be recorded and will probably be put out on this channel after it's been aired. I want to make sure that everybody gets the resources they need. So the resources that will be available will be employment resources. I will have employers on the spot that will hire formerly incarcerated that day, that moment. I will have education, literal skills, not a 4-year degree or an 8-year degree, but a true skill college that will say, if you come here and get your CDL in 6 weeks, 8 weeks, 12 weeks, I will get you a job in this field making this much. We will also have community resources like the hospitals to make sure that every child with parental consent or guardian consent gets the medical care that he or she needs. Every single child that attends will have access to free medical care, top notch, by the nicest hospital in the valley. I want to make sure that there's also some resources that the children leave with. And because it's a June event, school is heavy on my heart. Going back to school with a bad pair of shoes doesn't set the precedence for a great year. So I want to make sure that we put enough school children in great school shoes to make sure that they have the mindset to go and crush the year. I also want to make sure that they have backpacks and school resources, paper, pencils, markers, crayons, things that we either never had or maybe even took for granted when we were children. All of those resources I'm putting together, giving them away to the children, making sure that they have an impact. This is an event that's been heavy on my heart for about a year, and I am so excited, as you can tell, to really kick this off on June 4th. So please go to convictedmindset.com if you know anybody who would benefit from this event and register. It's free. Lastly, and perhaps most importantly, our community has supported us from the beginning of this endeavor. The Fresh Out community has shown their love to us, and we hope to show our love back to you in the form of information and game. And I hope that if you are in the position to help any of these children out in the form of shoes or hygiene or school supplies or backpacks, please go to convictedmindset.com. Let us know that you'd like to donate, and we will have someone from our team reach out to you and see what it is that you can donate. If it's a ruler, if it's a pair of scissors, if it's a box of glue sticks, we thank you. I cannot tell you how much this event means to me, and I hope and pray that this event changes the lives of the people that show up and the lives of the next generation of youth. As a father, it is important for me to let my children know that there is no such thing as limitations in this life, that the only limitations that exist are the ones that we put up top between our head, that the person that stares at you in the mirror every day is probably the one that's going to kill your dreams quickest. That because the choices you make determine the decisions, determine the destiny, determine where you go in life. Biography is not destiny. Decisions determine where you go in life. So whether you've had a parent that's incarcerated, a parent that's abusive, a spouse that's incarcerated, a spouse that's abusive, a spouse that's addicted, a best friend that's addicted, a parent that's addicted, that does not mean you are any of those things. Lastly, I want to give you a little piece of identity. Identity is what I speak on. It's what I preach on. It's what I love. When you understand that you are a 400 trillion to 1 miracle right here, right now, in this seat in America, with your DNA, with your opportunities at your fingertips, you no longer hit the snooze button on life. That's how I treat this event, because these young ones that are going to show up are miracles, and it is our obligation to make sure they have the resources to perform at their greatest level. If you would like to be involved in any capacity, or you would just like the highlight reel or the event tape, go to convictedmindset.com and register for the Convicted Conference on June 4th in Boise, Idaho. Help us be the change. Help us change a generation. Help us heal a community. I appreciate every single one of you. If we can do anything, please leave it in the comments. Please go to convictedmindset.com if we can help you. And I look forward to seeing you again very soon. Be well, friends.